been called a Christian national. We're all called Christian nationalists now. What is going on with that label, Christian nationalism?
Well, it's kind of like what we were talking about with the politics and defining the word. No one is working from the same definition of Christian nationalism. So it just gets thrown around, especially by the mainstream media, in this way that makes everyone think that this is this really dangerous, awful thing, but no one's taking the time to stop and define it. And there might be some cases of it that would be problematic from a biblical or a civic perspective. And then most of the time it's not. So I actually dug into this when I was doing the research for my book, and I looked at hundreds of pieces of content from mainstream media, videos, written content, everything, to understand when they use the term Christian nationalism, they're not going to be taking the time to carefully define it, of course, but what do they actually mean, as you can infer from the examples that they give? So that was my project. And when I got into that, what I found was that in the vast, vast majority of cases, I mean, at least 90% of the cases, all it meant when they were talking about a dangerous Christian nationalism is that there were Christians who were advocating for public policy according to their biblical values. That's what it meant. So you would see these articles, for example, where it was talking about a dangerous Christian nationalism coming to all 50 states. And if you look at the examples that they gave, you could find that Christians were advocating for what they called anti-trans laws, which, of course, from a Christian perspective, we are advocating for the good of trans people. So that is not an anti-trans law, but just the fact that we were advocating according to what they saw as biblical values was considered to be dangerous, anti-democratic, and theocratic. And this is just, and it's so unfortunate that so many Christians don't have a background in what the Bible teaches about the purpose of government and what we should be advocating for. And a lot of Christians don't have a background even in how our government functions. And so we come to believe these labels that the mainstream media puts out there. When we advocate for our views within a constitutional republic, we have just as much right to do that as anybody else. There's nothing dangerous about it. There's nothing anti-democratic. We're not going around our given form of government to try to sneak our ways in the back door. Like, this is really dangerous and anti-democratic. We're not doing that. We are actually advocating exactly as is intended within our form of government. And a theocracy, for the record, means that a government is formally recognizing a deity. Most of the time when Christians are advocating for their values, they're not suggesting that we actually establish a state church. Now, that is a conversation that is happening in some places. Mm-hmm. That's a different conversation, though. And this is what's fascinating to me, because you would think that that is what the mainstream media would be concerned about. Hey, look over here. Look in this corner. There are actually Christians who want to establish a new state church. You would think that's what they're talking about, but they're not. They're actually just talking about Christians